Hey folks, Garden Coach Deb here with Prior Unity Garden. Considering we've been having so much extreme heat events across the United States, I wanted to give you guys some tips on how to deal with some of this heat when it comes to your veggie gardens. One thing to keep in mind is that plants will stop growing altogether if it gets too hot for them. And the temperature depends on what variety or what type of plant we're talking about. Cool weather crops are going to be done, some of them even by 75, most by 85. By the time you hit 90, pretty much everything in your vegetable garden is not wanting to grow anymore. It's just too hot. It's kind of like when we go out in the heat and it's too hot and we don't want to be there, we just kind of sit there. We don't do a whole lot. Well, plants are kind of the same way. They're like, nope, not too hot. I ain't going to grow anymore. Not going to produce fruit for you. Sorry, I need to chill. One of the first things people think about is watering. I've got to water more, water more, water more. How you water can make a big deal on the health of your plants and their survival through the extreme heat. What you do not want to do is to put out one of those above ground sprinklers, in the middle of the afternoon. What you're doing is you're getting almost no water into the roots of the plants where they really need it to grow. You're getting it on the leaves, which can actually help spread disease, especially if you're in a humid climate. Then it can start spreading molds and mildews among the leaves. If you're in a dry climate, it's going to evaporate. You're just evaporating that water into the air at a much faster rate. And in either case, whether it's a humid climate or a dry climate, you're basically wasting the water and you're not really doing your plants a lot of good. So let's look at what we can do instead. The cheapest place to store water is in the ground. So we always say water from the bottom up. So how can that look? If you've cut a system of ditches, a swaling system as we call it, that can capture water, if you have any rain whatsoever, like we've just had some gully washers here in Virginia, just really heavy rains really fast. In a swaling system, you can capture that water and hold it in the ground. Likewise, if you have a ponding system, you can grab some of that water and then utilize it into a swaling system or other ditch system that could go be filtered around your in-ground beds. You can also put in a system around a raised bed. The same kind of idea with capturing and holding water in the ground versus having it just run off your property. Something else you can do is if you don't have that and you just got, we'll say, a small raised bed vegetable garden. You can take just simple plastic bottles, punch holes in them, stick that, dig a hole, stick that down in the ground, fill that with water, and those holes, if they're small enough, will allow the water to slowly dissipate and actually soak the soil that's next to each of your plants. You can also utilize this idea, which is a really low-tech sort of watering system, in a container garden as well. And speaking of container gardens, having timed soaker hoses going from one container to another is a nice way to help cut down the amount of time you're out watering. Soaker hoses are nice if you've got all your containers together. Then you can just run them along and they're just going to be soaking the ground versus having water spraying all over the leaves. Obviously, soaker hoses are also a fantastic way to be watering a garden that's in the ground or even a raised bed. One note, though, when you're turning the water on, you want to make sure that you're doing it at nighttime or what's the coolest part of the day, which often can be very early in the morning right before sunrise. So if you have it on a timer, you might want to set it for, say, 4 a.m. when it's very cool, or if you're an early bird gardener, you might be up and go out and turn the hoses on before you meditate or have breakfast or feed the dogs.
sa ni ni pa pa, come on, sorry, come pa ni pa, ta ni sa ni pa 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 come on.